Yes. While everybody's sitting down, I'd just like to welcome council back, welcome everybody back. I know you probably didn't know to do it yourself. We didn't have opportunity to attend council meetings, but glad to have everybody back. We're going to start this second half of the year off with a public hearing. We have a public hearing to consider amendments to sections 112704 and 112705 of the Planning and Zoning Code of the codified ordinances of the City of Marion, Ohio, pertaining to the R4 multifamily residential district to permit residential low-rise storage facility and conditionally permitted use, as a conditionally permitted use. Is there anybody that wishes to speak in favor of the change to the zoning code? Mr. Sheets? You could approach the right microphone here, state your name.
Good evening. My name is Stan Sheets. I'm an attorney here at 225 East Liberty Street, Medina, Ohio. I represent Brian Russell, my client here in the blue stripe. We processed this through the Zoning and Planning Commission, recommendations against our proposal. I have taken the time to provide you 40 bullet points of reasons that we felt this made sense as a conditionally permitted use within the multifamily district. However, with a little bit of reservation, when I started this, I did this as a conditionally permitted use in the R4 district because I thought there were only 3 or 4 qualified parcels. By the time we got to the meetings, the other map showed you Jonathan had identified 6 or 7 parcels. So it started to expand further. And now Jonathan's told me there might be 8 to 10 parcels. What he hasn't said is the vast majority of those are fully developed. There is some opportunity, but if in fact the zoning commission and the council is concerned about this because it's a blanket request for conditionally permitted use in this district, the other alternative would be a recommendation for remanding this potentially back to zoning and planning to be reviewed solely as a site-specific development on our 3.49 acres, which is located on State Route 57, directly across the street from the Medina Fire Station on 57 South. So I just want you to know, we're looking for a potential compromise. If that's one of the main issues about it being available for all those different areas, we'd like to take that away and consider the potential for the site-specific development. Again, I've laid out 42 reasons why we thought this made sense. I also laid out the 3 basic objections that the zoning commission had, which dealt with the comprehensive plan, which dealt with the fact that I had asked for CS, which was limited commercial service at one time, and that was turned down, so they felt there could not be any commercial there. And then the fact that the third area that was given as rationale was that, in fact, I had the zoning change from R2 to R4 just a year ago. I did that for my previous client, Elaine Jones, when she was attempting to market the property. However, during the discussions at zoning and planning, attending Board of Zoning Appeals, we found when after Mr. Russell had purchased the property that over 275 additional apartments had been approved in the city of Medina in the late 2016 and 2017, all to be built within the 2 years coming up. That's the 139 at Huntington Square, the 90 at Echelon on Huntington, the 48 the Metropolitan Housing Authority is built, and then Dr. Raymond. You add those up, it's over 275 units. We decided potentially maybe we could compete with those big developments. So that's why we went another route and looked at this as a viable option. That's all I have for tonight. Again, I've put this in the record with your clerk and secretary, so it'll be in the written record. I've given all of you copies of the 4 points. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you. And I'd like Mr. Russell also to speak just a moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sheets. Mr. Russell?
Brian Russell, 3480 Cook Road, Medina Township. I've talked to the neighbors around this property, and the 4 that they're adjacent to that have the biggest exposure were not opposed to it at all. They signed a letter saying they were aware that I want to put storage facility in, and it is zoned for apartments. Looking at the property, I don't really think it would impact their home value that much compared to the apartments. That's what they were really opposed to, was departments will. And most of them, if you're aware, there's mounds on the side where there's very little visibility from the road. I've got another facility, there's no doors or anything from the road, so it is attractive for a storage facility, and there is a good demand. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak in favor of the planning and zoning modification? Is there anybody that wishes to speak in opposition to the change in the planning and zoning code modification?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President.
Yes.
The opposition mainly comes out of the Planning Commission recommendation to the City Council. On May 11th, 2017, the Planning Commission, at the May 11th Planning Commission meeting, the proposed text amendments to 112704 and 112705 of the Planning and Zoning Code were reviewed. City staff provided a report and recommended denial of the proposed text amendments. And at the meeting, the Planning Commission discussed the facts of the applicant's proposal. And then the Planning Commission voted on a motion to recommend the proposed text amendment to the City Council. The motion failed 0 to 5. So the motion to recommend failed unanimously, which is effectively a denial. The legislative process requires that it goes through the City Council process, and that's the process we're in at the moment. The Planning Commission is just a recommending body for text amendments. So it had gone to the Finance Committee of City Council on June 12th. There was a minimum 30-day public hearing notice period. We have the public hearing tonight. So just wanted to reiterate the Planning Commission did unanimously failed the motion to recommend the text amendments to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak in opposition to the change in the zoning code? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, thank you.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Lamb.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
Shields.
Here.
Simpson.
Here.
Coin.
Here.
Hilbert.
Here.
Colasar.
Here.
Reading of the minutes.
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields.
I move that the minutes of the regular meeting of July 10, 2017, and the special meeting July 18, 2017, be approved as submitted by the clerk.
Second.
Discussion on the approval of the minutes for both meetings. Will the clerk please call the roll on the approval of the minutes?
Rose.
Abstain.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
I'd have to abstain also.
Hilbert.
Yes.
Colasar.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Motion passes 5 yeas, 2 abstentions.
Just to note, the reason for the abstention is I was not at the meeting.
Same here.
Reports of standing committees. The Finance Committee met prior to Finance this evening. It was a great meeting. We have another one 2 weeks from now. Health, Safety, and Sanitation Committee, Mr. Colasar.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a health safety meeting. Our last meeting was on July 25th. There was a couple items that went through committee that is now at the finance, and we should see it at our next council meeting to vote on. Besides that, we do not have any meetings scheduled, additional meetings scheduled at this time.
Thank you. Public Properties Committee, Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening and no meeting scheduled.
Thank you. Special Legislation Committee, Mr. Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. President. No meeting held and nothing to report.
Thank you. Streets and Sidewalks Committee, Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Streets and Sidewalks Committee held a meeting a couple of weeks ago to discuss moving forward with the application for a grant that was approved, and the application is in, and there's no other meeting scheduled at this time.
Thank you. Water and Utilities Committee, Mr. Hilberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. No meeting scheduled, nothing to report.
Thank you. Emerging Technologies Committee, Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. President. No meetings scheduled and nothing to report.
Thank you. Request for council action. All right, we have several for the Finance Committee. We have 17135 budget amendments, 17136 then and now for Medina Gazette, 17137 increased PO for Phoenix Technology International for the Service Department, 17138 donation of Dell computers to Medina City Schools, 17139 increased PO for Signal Service Company Service Department, 17140 increased PO for Osborne Medina for the Service Department, 17141 established blanket purchase order for amount limit, 17142 amending salaries and benefits code 3116 for group hospitalization, 17143 intensive supervision probation grant renewal, 17144 authorizing 2017 city auction, 17145 purchase of a 2017 F554 truck for the street department, 17146 amending ordinance 9117 Medina Township Fire Service Contract, 17147 Fire District Discussion Committee, 17148 amending ordinance 8051 gazebo and pavilion rental fees, 17149 increased PO for Davis Tree Farm for the Parks Department, 17150 increased PO for Rusty Oak Nursery for the Parks, 17151 accepting easement for West Smith Bridge Replacement Project, 17152 sponsorship brochure for the MCRC, 17153 Spring Grove Cemetery Material Storage Shed, 17154 amending ordinance 6317 job creation grant agreement for Carlisle, and 17155 job creation grant agreement for Spray Products Corporation. Whew, that was a lot of them. Reports of municipal officers. Mayor Hamill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to welcome council back. The State of the City is scheduled for to the Medina Area Chamber for Tuesday, September 5th at Weymouth Country Club at 11:30. I will also be presenting the State of the City to Medina City Council on Monday, September 11th, our next meeting at 7 p.m., hopefully between Finance and Council, if not following Council. The police chief testing is in process. They had the assessment center yesterday, Sunday, August 27th, and the written test is coming up yet in a couple weeks, maybe 3. Square events were very active this summer, bringing many visitors and residents to our square. And on this past Friday, August 25th, we had 5 ribbon cuttings. Dr. Lauren Raymond's project at the former Chamber site, Echelon Assisted Living and Memory Care Unit at the old Pythian site, the dedication of Ken Duke Stadium with a new turf, Skincare Solutions on South Court Street, and HHL Group. And I just wanted to share with the council that the common theme, Mr. Simpson was there, and Jim was there for, Jim Shields was there for the Duke Stadium. But the common theme in all 5 of those was that their experience with the city, and some of these developers have developed in various places throughout the state of Ohio, sometimes even out of Ohio, that our staff were helpful, efficient, pleasant, and they were very pleased with their experience with the city. Over and over, we heard those same comments. In fact, the president of Echelon was so pleased with his experience with the city that they sold their house in Cuyahoga Falls and they're moving to Fox Meadows to be in Medina. So I think that speaks well to what we're doing here. And last but not least, I'd like to invite up Jim Valentine for a proclamation, please. So this is a City of Medina proclamation that states, whereas Officer James Valentine has faithfully served his fellow citizens as a member of the Medina Police Department for over 30 years, and whereas Jim has served the community as a special officer starting May 4th, 1987 whereas he became a full-time officer with the City of Medina with dates of service from August 7th, 1990 through July 31st, 2014. And whereas he continued on as a special officer from August 1st, 2014 through August 31st of this year. Whereas during a long career in public service, he has made many contributions, including being an original member of the Medina County Coalition for Suicide Prevention, and was also instrumental in establishing the Driving Awareness Program in collaboration with the Medina Municipal Court. Whereas Jim additionally served the citizens of Medina as a teacher with Medina City Schools for 18 years. Whereas the City of Medina, by this recognition, wishes to express its great appreciation to Jim for his service, loyalty, and dedication to the community on the occasion of his retirement. And now, therefore, I, Dennis Hanwell, Mayor of the City of Medina, do hereby recognize and commend Jim Valentine for his years of dedicated service to the City of Medina, and do hereby extend personal congratulations and best wishes for continued success in his life's pursuits. I present this to you, Jim. God bless you. I'll give you the opportunity to talk if you'd like.
A couple of thank yous. A couple of quick comments. I was born and raised in Akron. My family moved to Medina County between my junior and senior year in high school. My first visit to the City of Medina was in the spring of 1967, where I was representing Wadsworth High School in the county track meet. I came into Medina in the summer of 1972, and I placed an application with the Board of Education for a teaching position. One special person that assisted me was the late Ralph Landmeyer. He had been the principal at Copley High School, where I had done my student teaching. He lived here in the City of Medina, and he gave me a thumbs up with the Board of Education, and I was hired by the Medina City Schools in 1972. Secondly, in 1987, while still teaching, I was approached by then City Planner Rick Grice, who was with us this evening. And it was Rick's suggestion that I join the police department as an auxiliary or special officer. And I gave that consideration. I made that decision. And again, it was with the encouragement of Rick. In 1990, I decided to make a career change as far as full-time, and that's when I became a full-time member of the Medina Police Department. So, special thanks to Rick, and as I said, to Ralph Landmeyer. I've never lived within the community, but I've been welcomed and appreciated, and I feel that it's my second home. I probably know more people in this community than Akron, where I grew up, or Wadsworth, where I have lived most of my years. And I thank all the citizens and all the people I've had contact with. It's been a pleasure, and I won't be a stranger, but I will miss the relationships and the friendships that I've developed over the years. Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations, and we appreciate all your service over the years. Mr. Durham, Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Most of the agenda originated with finance. I'll address those when they come up. Additionally, the final segment of budgets for our 2018 to 2022 planning is the general fund. I submitted those to council. The department heads all got them to me. I submitted them to council on Friday, and we'll be addressing those coming forward.
Thank you. Mr. Huber, Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you. Lieutenant Burt Beckler, Police Department.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you. Mrs. Marshall, Economic Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Mendel, Planning and Community Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Chief Painter, Fire Chief.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, Recreation Center Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick report. Just a few quick updates from the rec center. I'd like to thank the schools for another amazingly productive shutdown for the rec center back in the end of July. The custodial maintenance and also the rec center staff were just incredible in the amount of work that they actually accomplished in 5 days that were shut down. In addition to all the painting, deep cleaning, and repairs that were completed, the schools were able to contract for the resurfacing of the track, the aerobics room flooring, along with sanding the men's and community lockers and repainting those, and even had a large portion of the parking lot grinded, paved, and relined. So I want to, like I said, once again, thanks to all of those who worked so diligently during that shutdown period. I'm sad to announce the Memorial Pool's on its last official week of the season. Although the weather has been rainy and chilly, we have still tried to keep the pool open from 4 to 7 on weekdays and then 1 to 7 on the weekends. We'll also be open from 1 to 7 on Labor Day. I wanted to note that all the Cleveland pools, Metro Park pools, and even Ledge Pool closed on August 21st, and we continued on. I also wanted to thank the community for all their support this season and hope to see you all again there next year. And then lastly, our next Rec Advisory Board Committee is Thursday, September 21st at 7:30, and the October meeting will be canceled. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Worley, Parks and Recreation Director.
Thank you. Just one item. As you drive through the square the next couple days, you might notice some areas that are roped off and the grass is dead. The Parks Department is in the middle of a turf restoration project. We're killing off some undesirable grass and replacing it with more appropriate species. We hope to get the ropes down before the candlelight walk, and you'll never know in the spring. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Gladish, Building Official.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quick update of the building department. We are extremely busy. For the first 2/3 of the year, we issued a record number of building permits, close to 1,200. A few of the larger recently completed projects are the Medina County Career Center, their state-of-the-art renovation of their existing auto and diesel tech labs and classrooms. The new 131-unit Huntington Square Senior Living Building is now complete with 41 of the units leased. Tenants will be moving in on September 1st. A few of the larger projects currently under construction are 4 new single-family homes, 2 new side-by-side duplexes, a new 10-unit townhouse project, a 48-unit senior villa apartment project, a new 78-unit assistant living facility with interconnected 20-unit patient memory care facility, 2 large manufacturing factory additions, 2 new commercial building projects, 1 new dialysis center, and several multi-million-dollar renovation projects at Medina Hospital. That ends my report.
Thank you, Mr. Patton, City Engineer.
Thank you. Since Council last met, most folks probably know our West Smith project is essentially complete. It's not complete, substantially complete, I should say. There are some remaining items. They won't affect the traffic flow in terms of lane closure. The utility poles are still being relocated. Within the next week or so, the permanent traffic signals will be installed. And then in first part of September, the seeding and final landscaping will be completed. The 42 project has finished the west side. They're now working on the east side, so the zone changed. The big part of that to note, next week, Ledgewood Drive will be closed for 30 days while that's being replaced. And today, our 2017 concrete street repair program began, so you'll start seeing work all over the city at different locations for replacing concrete street panels. Thank you.
Thank you. Notices, communications, and petitions. There are none. Unfinished business. There's none. Introduction of visitors. Members of the public will be permitted the opportunity to speak on any issue or concern which pertains to the city during the portion of the council agenda devoted to introduction of visitors. All comments shall be directed to the chair, and a reasonable time limit of approximately 5 minutes will be imposed. If there is a group, please appoint a spokesperson. Speakers should approach the front right microphone and state their name and address so it can be entered into the minutes. Members of the public will be afforded the opportunity to comment on other portions of the meeting as determined by the chair or by a vote of the majority of council members present. Is there anybody that wishes to address council at this time? No one? Introduction and considerations of ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance 11417, an ordinance approving the 3-year capital improvement plan for the Medina Community Recreation Center and authorizing the expenditure of $150,000 to Medina City Schools in accordance with the joint operating agreement.
Move to approve.
Second?
Discussion? Mr. President,
Mr. Shields.
since I am employed by Medina City Schools, I'll need to abstain.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is in accordance with the Schools and City Joint Operating Agreement, which requires the city to have funds available to pay for shared capital improvement costs for the rec center, introduced in a 3-year plan. This plan was approved by the Rec Advisory and Finance Committee on 6/15/2017. I'm sorry, the Rec Advisory Committee on 6/15/2017, and the Finance Committee on July 10th. This appropriates those funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion or comment? Will the clerk please call the roll on the approval of the ordinance?
Shields.
Abstain.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hilberg.
Yes.
Colasar.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 yeas, 1 abstention.
Ordinance 11517, ordinance amending sections 3104B and G, 3105 and 3115A4 of the Salaries and Benefits Code of the City of Medina, Ohio, relative to various departments.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Durham?
Thank you, Mr. President. There's a few things in here. They're cleaning things up. One is 2 positions in the Finance Department were switched as to which one is civil service. The Civil Service Commission approved that. Second is a position that was eliminated elsewhere that's been eliminated, was referred to, and the reference is gotten rid of. And then I think that's it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Clerk, please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hilberg.
Yes.
Colasar.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Ordinance 115-17 passes 7-0.
Ordinance 11617, an ordinance amending ordinance number 16716, passed December 12, 2016, amendments to the 2017 budget.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Durham?
There are several here. The first one is to pay for a plat. We discussed at the Finance Committee meeting with the parcel we purchased next door to redo that plat. The next 2 are donations. As usual, when a donation is made, it still has to be appropriated by council in order for us to spend it. Then there's a group regarding the pool. Those are expenses that weren't budgeted initially because the pool hadn't been open the last few years. And then finally, there's a transfer.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Clerk, please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance.
Coin.
Yes.
Hilberg.
Yes.
Colasar.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Ordinance 116-17 passes 7-0.
Ordinance 11717, ordinance of the Council of the City of Medina, Ohio, certifying that when a municipal obligation was incurred, sums were lawfully appropriated and the funds to satisfy the obligation, and sufficient sums currently exist to satisfy this obligation.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields?
the emergency clause has been requested. I move to add it this time.
My second includes the emergency clause.
Discussion on the emergency clause and the ordinance. Mr. Durham?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is for paying for the coloring books for the Bicentennial Committee. They've already been printed, so we owe this bill. Emergency clauses so we can pay the people who printed them.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the ordinance or the emergency clause? Will the clerk please call the roll on the approval of the emergency clause?
Colasar.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hilberg.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Hilberg.
Yes.
Colasar.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Ordinance 117-17 passes 7-0.
Council comments.
Mr. Coyne?
Mr. Simpson?
Thank you. Just a couple things. First of all, we're having a Ward 1 and Ward 2 meeting next Tuesday, which would be September 5th, at Sidney Fenn Elementary School, which is located at 320 North Spring Grove. Hopefully, that'll be around 7 p.m., and I believe, Jim, is that in the
Cafeteria?
in the cafeteria at Sidney Fenn. So anybody from Ward 1 or 2 or anybody throughout the city that would like to attend and make a comment or voice concerns, you're more than welcome. The second thing is I would like to recognize continue to recognize Officer Jim Valentine. I had the pleasure for several years, most of the years of your career as a special officer and a full-time officer, to work alongside you, and I couldn't have been prouder of the work that you did, and the accomplishments that you've made over the years, and I wish you well and in your health and anything that you're planning on doing in retirement. It's well deserved, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any additional council comments?
Mr. President?
Mr. Colzar?
I also would like to thank Jim for his hard work in our community. I mean, I remember you as a teacher at the high school and also a full-time officer. So thank you for your years of dedication to this community, its residents, and its kids. So thank you very much.
Any additional council comments? Mr. Lamb?
You didn't even look at me.
I didn't have to.
Okay. Well, I'd like to also want to thank you for all you've done for the community, Jim. I believe I met you in your classroom. Is that correct? The first time we met was in a social studies class in your classroom. Right. You were the teacher. Yes. Pardon me? I hope it was good. But I will be short. South Court Street has their annual home tour on September 16th this year, which is about a month later than it usually is. And of course, because it's a home tour, there will be homes. The oldest home is in the 1830s, and the newest home is in the 1940s. And when you think about it, when you're older like I am, 1940s to some people seems really, really old, but to some people it doesn't seem that old. But really, it's almost 80 years old, I guess. If you built your house in the 1940s, that house is going on. Yeah, 70-some years old. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. Anything else you want me to say?
I appreciate sitting next to this guy because he
I tell him what to say.
Yeah. Careful when you say that. But anyway, so of course there are houses on the house tour, but the most exciting thing is this. As you've read and heard before, we're on the cusp of the 200-year anniversary of our community. And so it made sense to me that when we have the home tour this year, that we should recognize to some substantial degree the role that some of these inner city, the main streets in the inner cities played with the development, the historic development of the downtown, because many of the people that built the buildings we now recognize, these Victorian buildings, well, they also built the homes on the main streets of town. And so in addition to just seeing homes this year and having great food and meeting good people, as we have for the 6 previous years, this year the tour will start in the basement of what is now Huntington Bank. And you can walk into the vault that was put in the then Old Phoenix Bank after the fire of 1870. There is a beautiful vault. And then as you head down South Court Street into the neighborhood, you will meet the ghosts of characters who built houses on South Court Street, but also built the buildings, some of the buildings, and operated the businesses on the square. And finally, the most exciting thing to me anyway is, because I didn't know it even existed anymore, is the stagecoach that Old Phoenix Bank had, and we were familiar with the stagecoach in many parades. The stagecoach will be at the home tour to give rides. House tour, there'll be a nice ride around the block, down south from South Street, down Court Street, over to Grant, back up Broadway, and then get off. But you get this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to ride the Old Phoenix stagecoach. So it should be a fun evening. It's on September 16th, and tickets are available at Miss Molly's Tea Room and Cool Beans Coffee and the Medina County Visitors Bureau. Was I short enough?
That was great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim, I just want to say thank you for your service. Back in about 2002, 2003, we had a situation in the neighborhood. I called the police department to file a report. You came to the house, very professional, very thorough, and I always remember that. So thank you for your service. I'm quite sure that example at my place was how you've conducted yourself throughout your illustrious career. So thank you and good luck in your retirement.
Mr. Shields?
I would like to, at this time, make a motion for council to go into executive session to include Mayor Hanwell, Finance Director Keith Durham, Law Director Greg Huber, and Parks and Recreation Director Jansen Worley. The purpose of our executive session tonight is to consider the purchase of property for public purposes, because premature disclosure would give an unfair competitive advantage to a party whose personal private interest is adverse to the general public interest.
Is there a second?
Second.
Will clerk please call the roll? Here, we didn't finish. We had an executive session prior, so we had to end that one. We're starting a new one.
You didn't tell me that.
Sorry about that. You were up here.
Okay. Simpson?
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hilbert.
Yes.
Colasar.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
We'll be recessing into executive session to discuss the items mentioned by Mr. Shields. We will return from executive session, taking no action from executive session and adjourning the meeting, I guess. Okay, we're in recess. Thank you. I don't know. You weren't there to begin with.